She looked amazing. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna try this. And it was so perfect, like, because it's everything that I've ever loved, which is just
Yeah.
lifting weights. And I remember I was very nervous about being on stage for the first time because I was camera shy. Um, and so being on stage to me was like terrifying because you're like 90% naked, flexing in front of a whole crowd. But I remember being center stage and like having this feeling of like, okay, like I'm home. Like I found like and I always get emotional talking about it, but yeah, it just felt like, okay, this is it. And so from there I just became obsessed. And that was 2019. That was my first show. And then I think then COVID hit. Yeah, then COVID hit, and then I did another one 2021. And pretty much like every other year I would compete. But yeah, I pretty much live and breathe the sport, and that's kind of how I got myself into it.
Did you always was that physique division?
Yeah, so the coaches that I had, because I was like naturally I was already like 100 because I'm tall, I'm 5'10".
Oh
So
yeah.
naturally,
Oh,
oh yeah, I'm tall, like super tall. So naturally I was around like 185. And I had a really good foundation just from like my whole life basically training and stuff like that. Like it wasn't very bodybuilding specific, but still working out. And so my coach was like, well, you could either go figure or women's physique. And I was like, there's no way in hell I'm wearing high heels. Like, not a chance. So that's kind of where I went to women's physique. And I just like the more poses. Um, yeah, the heels was a big thing for me. I think that was like the biggest determining factor. But yeah, so I started women's physique and I got like pretty lean my first show, but I was just small.
yeah.
So from there, I knew I had to grow. So I took 2 years and COVID too, right? So I was kind of forced to take 2 years off. And so I was actually just talking about this with somebody else that like on stage, I think my leanest, my first show, I was like 143 or something at like 5'10". And then my first off season, I got up to like 208. So I just ate and ate and ate and ate
Mm.
and just tried to get as big as I could. Um, and yeah.
Was you like intimidated like by the judges? Criteria like a certain way you had to be.
Yeah, like I'd say like the posing part was the most intimidating thing for me just because like naturally I'm not the most graceful person out there, and so um I also had a really hard time like learning how to open my lats and stuff like that. So trying to learn how to pose, and I can't even remember how long the prep was, 16 weeks.
Mm.
It was hard for sure. I think the posing was the hardest part and the most intimidating thing. Like of course, standing in front of judges too, because you don't really know what they want, and um, you don't know what to expect, and it's kind of different for every show, especially now too. But I think as I gain more experience and more stage time, I just have to tell myself that no matter what the outcome is, I know I did my best, and I know I pushed my hardest. So whether they like somebody better or if I win or whatever the outcome is, I'm kind of okay with it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, and I was about to say it can be frustrating. Well, I'm not a bodybuilder. I don't know, but from hearing people's experience, it seems kind of frustrating. You know.
yeah, it definitely can be like even if I come second or third or whatever, like there is still deep feelings of disappointment and stuff because no matter like how you could literally give everything you have into a prep and you could think that you deserve the win, but you still might not get it. And that could be
Yeah.
hard too, right? Because other sports, it's like it's a definite like, okay, you scored a goal, like you won, sort of thing. Whereas like with bodybuilding, it to a degree is pretty subjective, and it could just be the right day, depends who shows up, depends who the judge is. Like there's so many different factors that could play into your placing. And of course, like you want the hard work you put into it to reflect the result, but it's just not always like that. So it's very humbling for sure. Like very, very humbling, but it can either also make or break you, because I've also seen with other people where, you know, maybe they quit or they
Mm.
don't, they can't take the criticism, you know. um but it's just a part of the sport, and you just kind of have to accept it and have the right mentality.
What gives you like the motivation to do this, although it's kind of intense?
Yeah, I think just with growing up, I really have to give a lot of credit to wrestling, honestly, because and especially the coach, like my high school coach I had, he really pushed me. Like he saw a lot of potential in me and stuff like that, even when I didn't. And I think how hard wrestling was, and
Mm,
growing up doing something that was that hard, it's kind of just becomes your life, and you just seek out challenges. And this is definitely one of those things where, like, I tell people all the time, like for me, like the physical part is really cool, like you get bigger, you get leaner, you get stronger, but like the mental growth that you get from doing a show is like insane, because
mm.
there's days you don't want to go, there's days you're so tired, but like you still have to do it, you know. And so that part is probably my favorite part. And I'm just very competitive, like I hate losing. um but I also know too that, like, I just like giving my all into something, and
Right.
this is like the only thing that I've found in my life that I really, really do give like 100,000% of myself to. And yeah, just the lifestyle too. Like I grew up, I actually had an eating disorder growing up. And so like food was always gave me like a lot of anxiety. And it's weird because a lot of people that I've talked to, like, they've tried a show but they don't do it anymore because it gave them like disordered eating.
Yeah.
Whereas like for me, bodybuilding helped me out of that, because even when I had that first off season where I went from whatever 140 something to 208, like normally that would have freaked me out. And quite honestly, I cried a lot like my first
Mm.
off season, because I wasn't used to having that much fat on me.
Oh,
But then when I did the next show and I saw I was lean again and I saw how much bigger I was, then I was like, oh, I see the value in this. So
mm.
now having an off season and me having more fat on my body doesn't bother me like at all, basically, because there's a purpose to it, and it's just a part of the process. So um yeah, it really helped me in my relationship with food and my body. And yeah.
Was
Sorry,
you
I went
you,
on a
you
tangent.
nah? Was you was eating a lot mostly? Like you just like when you say you have a eating disorder?
No, I was under eating. So,
Oh, under eating. Oh, okay.
yeah, so I was very thin, like
Oh,
from I developed it in about grade 10, I think.
no.
So, what is that? I guess you guys don't have grades. It's a little different. So, I think I was 15, and then I'd say from 15 until 25, I
Mm.
had a very bad relationship with food. And
Oh,
even though
wow.
like I wanted to be big or like muscular, I didn't. I also struggled with like also wanting to be really thin.
Right.
So when I was younger, I would you kind of use wrestling as an excuse to like lose weight, because I'm like, oh, I'm just going down a weight class or two. But like the motive wasn't for wrestling. It was just because I wanted to be like, and I was really thin. Like I have pictures and I like look at them and I'm like, oh my God, like my arms were like this big. Um
How
yeah,
was you?
so
No, I was gonna ask you how was you able to wrestle but you was thin? Like
I
did
honestly, I think about that and I have no idea because I literally, so I was so obsessed with tracking
yeah,
calories and I had an app, like a calorie tracking app, and
yeah,
I wouldn't go over 1200 calories a day.
yeah,
And I would weigh myself multiple times a day. Like it was just really unhealthy. And
right.
I think back and I'm like, how the hell did I wrestle? Because we our practices would be 2 hours a day, and you're essentially like fighting. And so I honestly don't know how I did it.
Were you
I just
wrestling guys or girls?
in high school I wrestled guys a lot just because I
Oh,
was already bigger. Mostly actually, yeah, most of high school I wrestled guys. But I competed against women just in practice. I would wrestle with guys. And then in university, just because it's such a different level of wrestling than you just wrestle the girls on the team. But yeah, I remember like when I got to university because there were seniors there. So I was junior, I guess, and looking at all the seniors, like they were so jacked. Like I remember looking at my friend Danielle, and she had like massive arms, huge delts, and I was like so embarrassed because I had these like stick arms that I would just wear a
mm,
sweater every day, and I was like, okay, I need to like catch up to these girls. So slowly over time, I kind of got out of that I want to be skinny mentality. Um, but yeah.
yeah. Well, we got a guest. His name is All the Rage George Page. Can you see this? Okay, yeah,
Oh, I saw a little like blurb.
yeah, I know. I'm on my tablet, so this thing it kind of acts funny. He says good evening, folks, and then he says, let me see. So, what are Monica's plans for competing?
Yeah, so I'm actually in prep right now. I'm 9 weeks out from a show in Reno, Nevada. Um, yeah, so I'm 9 weeks out, but me and my coach decided to be ready early. So even though I'm 9 weeks out, I'm prepping like I'm 4 weeks out or
Mm,
5 to 4 weeks out. So yeah, doing lots of cardio, all that stuff. But yeah, I'm just doing the one show this year, and it'll be my first show as a pro. I got my pro card
yeah,
2 years ago. Yeah, so it's like my rookie season, I call it. Yeah, so I got a whole lot of nerves for that because it's a bigger stage, um, more competition, and just a different level of bodybuilding that I'm also very excited to do because then I'll know kind of where I stand at the pro level. And so I always joke, I'm like, if I get shit kicked, then I'll take another 2 years to grow. And then if I do well, then I'll probably just keep going with where I'm at.
yeah. I wanted to piggyback on this eating order. Like, did you ever find like the cause of it? Like, did you find like the cause of you not eating?
I think it was just like growing up. So I have loved like before the eating disorder, I loved
Yeah,
eating. Like
yeah,
oh my God, like I'm Polish and like the food my mom cooks is amazing. I just always like even from when I was like a baby and we watch like me as like a 3-year-old kid and it's just me chasing food around everywhere and just wanting food and eating. And so when I kind of hit puberty, that eating started to catch up with me, and then I would just hear comments all the time of like, "Oh, you're getting fat" and stuff like that. And I think just being young and impressionable, that like really started to get to me, and then that's kind of like where I think it all started. I can't
yeah.
like pinpoint a certain moment, but I just remember like those
No,
comments.
that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, just over time.
Food is a weapon and a tool for bodybuilding.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's a great tool for bodybuilding.
So how do you feel like with the prep and stuff? Like do you do like the macro counting? Like count your
Um,
macros and all that stuff?
No, I prefer to have a meal plan. Like I do meal plans year round, so even in my off season, just because I'm like super OCD and I'm also lazy, like I just don't want to think. Like with macros, you can like punch things into an app or whatever. And I just don't want to think. Like I just like being told like what to do, what to eat. I think my taste buds are also broken by this point because I'm like so basic with my foods. Like I could put salt on something and I'm happy. Um, so yeah, I'm like the way I view it took years obviously to get like this because I used to have like really bad cravings and stuff like that. But at this point, I honestly just view food as fuel,
Yeah,
and and if there's some spice on there and it tastes all right, then I'm happy. And for me, I'm just a volume eater. Like I love eating in the off season. So when I have lots of food, then I'm happy. It's just the dieting part when the food gets cut and the amounts get cut. That's like what gets hard. I just don't like being hungry. That's the thing.
what you usually eat like during your diet?
Yeah, so right now, so it's yeah, it's interesting because like my base diet, like
Yeah,
my proteins, my fats don't really change that much, but the carbs do. So whether I'm off season or in prep, like most of it stays the same. It's just in my off season I get more rice, more cream of rice, maybe some more fats, and then in prep. So right now I eat six meals a day. Um, I have beef, like super lean beef, salmon, chicken, eggs and egg whites, and then my carb sources are just a little bit of berries, cream of rice, and rice. So like super clean sources, and then my fats are avocados, almond butter, and then the salmon has healthy fats too, and eggs. So the egg
yeah,
yolks in there. But
yeah,
yeah, it's so basic. Like, cause at my job, like they always cook extravagant meals and I'm just like eating my chicken and rice and they're like they feel bad for me, but honestly it doesn't bother me. Like sometimes it's
yeah.
hard because like their food looks so good and smells good and I'm just like eating like a peasant.
Yeah,
But
I mean, because it's different. Like the bodybuilder lifestyle, like the way that you guys eat. Sometimes, like especially, I was talking to somebody yesterday, and they had they was cutting certain foods and stuff, and to a point where they was kind of depleted and all this stuff, and
yeah, I think yeah, that's once the food gets cut and then because usually when the food gets cut the cardio gets higher, so
yeah,
then like you're tired from all the cardio but then you're also not getting replenished, like even for training too, like I'm noticing that I'm getting a lot, not a lot weaker, but like it's more mentally difficult to try to lift the same amount of weight.
yeah,
And also my recovery is a lot slower just because I don't have the food to like help and like help replenish like what I'm losing basically. So I have to be a little more careful now because I'm also stubborn and I'm like, no, I have to get this weight. But then I could also end up injuring myself, and that's not smart either. So I'm learning. I'm learning.
of course, of course. All the way, George Page. He got a question for you. So what does Monica do for a living? Well, I know that you're a fitness trainer and you're a firefighter.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
So firefighting, that's my main career. I love it. It's I honestly
yeah. I
don't know
got
what
some
else I would
pictures.
do. Yeah.
I,
And for bodybuilding, it's perfect too because yeah, there it is.
yeah,
That's my captain. He's awesome.
yeah. Do you see
Yeah,
that?
that was
Okay.
Christmas Day this year.
What made you become a firefighter?
So I used to do forestry wildfire fighting for 4 years,
Yeah.
and originally I wanted to be a police officer, but then as I was in the fire service there in forestry, a lot of people there, it's mostly guys. Some like there's some women too, but it's male dominated. Um, a lot of them were using forestry as kind of like a stepping stone, like something good to have on your resume to apply for structural firefighting. And so they're like, "Oh, why don't you try this? Like, I think you'd really like it." And so, because forestry is seasonal, then in my off seasons, I would slowly take courses for structural firefighting and everything I needed to apply. So it only took about like maybe a year or two for me to get all my certifications, and then I kind of just went for it and applied to a bunch of places around here, and yeah, I got in, and I honestly love it so much. I just like a different, every day is different. The adrenaline rush, you're also helping people, um and you're working with a team, which is huge, and you're like never really alone. Like everything we do as a team, and you really get this like family kind of feeling. Like the department I work for is pretty small. Like there's about maybe 220-ish people, and so you get to know everybody, like you do things together. um Whereas like there's other cities where they're really big, like might have 900 people, but then you don't get to meet everybody, you don't work with the same people all the time. So it's just kind of a different dynamic, but I really, really like where I'm at. I'm very, very, very grateful.
How many hours do you work every?
So, we used to do 2 days, 2 nights, and then you would have 4 days off. But last October, we switched to 24-hour shifts. So we work 24 hours on, 48 off, 24 on, and then 4 days off. So it's honestly, even like for bodybuilding, it's perfect because the days that I work, I just take as rest days. And yeah, I like it a lot better. Even though they're longer days, but then you get more time off. So it's kind of
So 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 it's convenient for you,
yeah.
like the, oh, okay, okay.
And
And
especially
you,
where I live, like where I
right.
live, the traffic is absolutely crazy. So our shifts are 7 a.m. to 7 a.m. So whether you're going to a shift or coming home from a shift, you're kind of beating the traffic. Whereas before, like going into a night shift was terrible. Um, Sometimes going home from a night shift was not great, but for the most part, yeah, it's just everything about it is better. I like it a lot better.
Have you ever been like into like dangerous situations, like where like with burning fire or anything like that?
Yeah, like we've had some house fires where we had to like call a mayday, and um one of my captains like fell through a floor. But luckily he was okay, he just injured his shoulder a little bit. But for the most part, like we're pretty safety oriented just because well, we have to be, right? So we always look out for ourselves. Like if there's like a whole house that's engulfed, like you're not going to save it, right? So most things like we don't go into unless there's somebody inside. If there's like, cuz we kind of go by priority of like life is first, then it's property. And so if there's somebody inside, then yeah, like we'll risk our lives. Um, but if it's too dangerous, like there's no point risking your life, right?
How long you think you'll do firefighting?
Probably forever.
Wow.
So for my department, like at 60, you have to retire. That's like
Yeah.
mandatory. But for like a pension, let's say, I think it's like 30 or 35 years. So I'll be there for a while. Like I'm in my sixth year. I don't even like think about retiring because it's like so long away. But I've also never had life go by this fast. Like just time has flown by just because you are kind of living in like an 8-day cycle. And yeah, I've never had time go by this quick. Like it's so bizarre, like it's hard to explain, but I even the 6 years I've been on, like I feel like I just started last year. Like it's wild.
I have a friend that he was he just retired as a police officer. He's been doing it since like I would say 2004. Yeah, I seen him the other day and I didn't know when he retired. I was like, so when you gonna retire? How he already did his stuff. It's like how you feel? It's like it's okay. I miss it, because
Yeah.
he was like a transit cop, like he
Oh
would
yeah.
like yeah anybody that do some crazy stuff like hop the train and stuff, you gotta
He
arrest
was
them.
there.
Yeah, so
Yeah, I think like that. I think that's why it's important. Like, and I'm also very grateful that I have bodybuilding, just because like I love firefighting too, but it's like not my whole life. It's not my whole identity. Like, there's so many little different things that like make up who I am, and so I think it's also important to have like other things that you're into, just because like it would be hard, like that. That is your whole life, and then all of a sudden you retire and you don't have any plans, like a lot of